Mr. Wallach and Mr. Gaffney, Ms. Brownlee asked you a question. Ms. Brownlee, I may need you to ask that question again if you don't mind. She asked you about the doctors inside the VA and the latitudes that they have, which I thought was an amazing question. But Mr. Wallach, you had, impressively so, I was watching your mind work. Do you remember the question that Ms. Brownlee asked? I know you remember every single question that was asked in this room today, but can you unpack what was rolling through your mind? I'd be curious to see how we're going to, because to her point, this is a very delicate space we operate in. The doctors and clinicians that work inside the VA need latitudes. As a former researcher myself, I understand the necessity of that. So there's going to be a delicate balance that we need to have, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, if you don't mind.
Sure. My view is it's important to recognize that expertise is always on a particular topic. Just because you're the expert doesn't give you the full view of everything that's happening. So yes, we absolutely need to build in places for experts to use their expert judgment where it's appropriate, where it's actually applicable. But, as we've talked about, oftentimes you have people who are experts in the administration of healthcare to veterans deciding whether to start a big new loan program. That doesn't seem like something that's actually within the scope of their expertise. So we can't just be intimidated by the fact that we say, oh, there's experts in the executive branch, we ought to let them make policy. No, they ought to have their place to use their expertise, but not go beyond that.
Yeah, one of the biggest concerns that I have is, and Mr. Vicon?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So one of the biggest concerns that I have is that, we do pass legislations, but again, administrations or leadership that's put in place will flip those rules and regulations to their benefit, which is very detrimental, or it could live and breathe in a good spot. It seems like at times the gate has been open and the horses are out, and we have no control over it inside this legislative body, which is our primary role and responsibility. But I'm curious, and Mr. Squitieri, you can help me, if you wouldn't mind, in your thoughts with what we're talking about today, if you would put that in crayon for me as we move forward into the next administration and administration after that, administration after that, because the VA is very special to not only to the veterans on this panel, but arguably, our veterans are the most cherished asset we have.
Yes, so to limit the horse out the barn scenario, I think Congress just needs to be as clear as possible in legislative text, hold plenty of congressional oversight hearings of VA officials and ask them why they're interpreting things certain ways. And I would say that members on both sides of the aisle in Congress should keep up that motivation regardless of what political party is in the White House, because I think Congress will oftentimes think, okay, this VA, I really like what they're doing, and that's great, but I think Congress needs to always keep in mind, well, what about down the road? What could we be putting in congressional text now when, for example, there's a majority in Congress? What could we be putting in legislative text now to help alleviate that kind of horse out the barn scenario that future administrations decades down the road.
The challenge that we have is communication down inside the organization is different than communication out and up outside the organization to us, and we have to bridge that gap because the things that happen inside the VA are presented to us very differently, which is something that we're going to need to work on. But I thank you for answering that question, sir, and thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.